Well, today we'd like to talk a little bit about health savings accounts and whether you should be spending that money or saving that. So here's to spend or not to spend. And after a brief Wespath disclaimer, I'd like to introduce today's presenters. My name is Kelly Wittick. I'm the Director of Health and Wellbeing at Wespath Benefits and Investments. And with me for this presentation, I have Dan Eck, who is truly a financial planning expert. So if we're talking about whether you should be spending or saving, who better to invite than a financial planner? So Dan Eck is with EY Personal Finance, and he is going to give us some of his insights on this topic today. So today what we'll be going over is just a very brief refresher on health savings accounts. We'll talk a little bit about the health savings account stats for actual savings that we've seen in the HealthFlex plan. We'll talk about best practices for HSA savings, and that's where we're going to tap into Dan and his expertise. And then we're going to conclude with some tips and next steps depending on where you are in your health savings account saving journey. So let's start by refreshing our minds on what a health savings account is. Many of you listening today may already know what a health savings account is. Many of you may already have a health savings account. But a quick reminder, a health savings account, or HSA, is a tax-advantaged account. In order to contribute to a health savings account, you have to be enrolled in an IRS-qualified high-deductible health plan. For those of you in the Wespath HealthFlex plans, those are the HSA plans. And HSA allows you to tax-free defer some of your regular paycheck into this account, and you can also contribute post-tax and claim those contributions on your taxes after the fact. But you can defer that money and not pay taxes on it up until an IRS maximum contribution. What's nice about a health savings account that makes it a little bit different than a flexible spending account, which is similar, is that an HSA is portable and it rolls over forever. It's always yours. It's a real bank account. So unlike the use it or lose it proposition that you see with flexible spending accounts, the money that you put in a health savings account is always yours. And that makes it a really great potential savings vehicle, as well as something to just reimburse you for current year expenses. Another really cool thing about health savings accounts is that they are what we call triple tax advantaged. So flexible spending accounts, 403Bs like UMPIP, they all have tax advantages, but the health savings account has a triple tax advantage. The first is that you can actually make contributions and make them pre-tax. So you can make them as part of a paycheck deferral. It can decrease your taxable income. So you get a tax advantage when you first contribute because you're not paying taxes on the money you contribute. You can also earn money. So if you get investment earnings or if you get interest payments based on the money that you've set aside in your health savings account, you can earn money on that, that contribution, and that you're not taxed on. And the other thing that's really great about health savings accounts is you can always take tax-free contributions from an HSA as long as you use the money for a qualified healthcare expense. A bonus, you can also use the money after retirement for other expenses, and in that case, you would pay tax on those distributions. But you can keep that triple tax advantage by not paying tax on the way in or the way out if you decide to use that HSA balance for a qualified healthcare expense. I'm going to do a quick summary or refresher on how tax savings works if you use that money on current expenses. So if you decide to reimburse yourself from your HSA in your current year, and let's say you have $2,500 in out-of-pocket expenses, if you don't have money in a health savings account or a flexible spending account, then you're going to pay that $2,500 to the hospital or to your doctor with money that you've already paid tax on. But if you contribute that money to a health savings account or a flexible spending account instead, you can not pay tax on that $2,500. So that really gives you, if you're in a 22% tax bracket, it really gives you a boost of maybe $550 that you're saving off that expense. So that's a really great tax savings to be able to use in the current year. The HSA has some advantages if you do decide to use it for current year expenses. First of all, you can contribute a lot more money to it than you can to a flexible spending account, especially if you are covering family members. So if you're covering family members, you can contribute up to $7,100. That's the 2020 limit. And if you're over 55, you can contribute up to $8,100. So that's much more than the $2,500, $2,600 that you get in a flexible spending account. You can also contribute money after you receive a service. So let's say you didn't know that you were going to have some kind of an emergency, or you didn't know that you were going to need surgery, and you didn't set aside money at the beginning of the year. Well, with a health savings account, you can choose to add money, add contributions after that, as long as you have the HSA opened. You can also keep that health savings account. I mentioned it was portable, even if you're no longer enrolled in a health savings account plan. And so you can keep paying for expenses in the future. And you can also use it to pay for continuation or COBRA premiums. One of the things that we want to talk with you about today, and why I've invited Dan to join us, is that you do have the ability to invest your HSA dollars for the future. So the status quo is kind of, if you decide to keep your HSA funds in your interest-bearing account, and we're going to go ahead and advance to the next click on this so you can kind of see that status quo option. One more, yep. So that money is available for reimbursement today. You can use it to reimburse yourself for current expenses, and so that's the way we've sort of been talking about the tax advantages. But an additional option is actually to invest your HSA dollars for the future. So if you have that save mindset, you might consider putting your HSA funds in long-term vehicles, and I'm going to let Dan talk to you in a couple slides a little bit more about that. If you do decide to do that, you may want to think about contributing more to your HSA. So if you want to get greater tax advantages today and more savings opportunities tomorrow, contributing more may be something that you decide to consider. I think that one of the things that we've noticed is that there really is an untapped opportunity for UMC participants. So if we look at the folks who are in HealthFlex health savings accounts, we're seeing that currently fewer than 3% are actually investing their HSA dollars at all. Now, for those who are investing their HSA dollars, their mean amount per investment account is a little over $6,000. So considering some of those folks may have only been in an HSA account situation for a year or two, that's actually a great chunk of money to have started out. But the vast majority of HSA participants don't have a large balance at all, and they may not be contributing more in a given year than they expect to spend and reimburse themselves. So if we look at the other 97% of accounts, they are not investing and they have all that money in their bank account, the HSA bank account, and the average amount per HSA in the bank account is only $1,800, which is really not even enough to potentially cover the deductible for many people. So there really is an opportunity, and so therefore I'm going to turn it over to Dan and ask him to share with you a little bit about how you might think about using your HSA not just to spend, but potentially also to save. Dan?
Thank you very much, Kelly. I appreciate that. And so we're going to get into the financial planning side of this a little bit. Now, as you've heard already, the HSA offers some really valuable advantages, and you'll see these on the screen. In fact, though, it brings together several important financial planning areas and topics that we really care about. And it starts with income taxes. This may be the only time we really get to truly talk about what's called triple tax advantage, which you've already heard about. As the money goes in, as it grows, as it comes out, all of that is free of income tax. So it's a really great way to start. But being in a high deductible health plan and using an HSA certainly also requires some focus on managing your cash flow. But it also brings some flexibility to your cash flow. The premiums in a high deductible health plan are lower than traditional plans, which is especially valuable if you remain relatively healthy. Because lower premiums could mean additional cash flow that you can use for other needs. And this arrangement provides some great tools and features to both manage and even take control of the flow of dollars for your healthcare. So that certainly includes the HSA account that does carry over and the limited purpose flexible planning account, which you can use as part of this arrangement that doesn't carry over, but gives you another tool in your arsenal as you manage cash flow and taxes. And as you heard, the HSA provides an opportunity to invest your dollars if you're saving them for the long term. And then finally, retirement planning is now on the table because HSAs provide an extremely valuable opportunity to save and invest significant dollars for healthcare in retirement. Now, why is that important? Well, there's a study released annually by Fidelity that projects the amount that a couple can expect to spend on healthcare throughout their retirement, assuming they retire at 65 and they sign up for Medicare. This year, that figure is $285,000, which means you'll need that much in resources during retirement just to cover healthcare costs. Now, that could be your UMPIP balance, that could be the value of your Social Security payments, or it could be the money that you've saved in your HSA. It's probably a mix of all of those. But keep that in mind as we consider later the role that your HSA might play in retirement planning. So we have opportunities here around tax savings, cash management, investing, and retirement planning. But let's start by making sure everyone fully understands the specific timing of how dollars can flow in and out of an HSA account. There's really two pieces to this. Everything starts with the first time you're covered by a high deductible health plan. So you choose that plan and the plan year starts. At that time, you're eligible to open an HSA and start contributing dollars. But you can only make contributions during the time you're actually covered by high deductible health plans. So if you're in it this year and you make contributions to the HSA, so you move to a different health plan for a year or two, and then you come back a few years later to a high deductible plan, you can again start making contributions to the HSA. So money going in is only when you're in that high deductible health plan. But then comes the question of when you can make distributions to reimburse you for medical expenses. An HSA is your account and it stays with you, and you can make distributions even in years after you're no longer in a high deductible health plan. That includes taking money out in retirement. And here's the key point. You can get reimbursed for any expenses you've incurred since the day you started in the high deductible in the HSA, even in later years. So think of it this way. Let's say you wanted to build up a long-term balance in your HSA. So you pay your out-of-pocket medical bills with your current dollars out of your checking account. And as you do, you put all those receipts in a shoebox for several years. 5 years later, you have a big balance in your HSA, you've invested it, and you have a shoebox full of receipts. And you find you need to withdraw some money from your HSA. You need the cash. Simply pull out some of those receipts from any of those years since you started in the plan, even from that first year in the plan, add them up, and you can take that much out tax-free. You just make a withdrawal that matches the amount that your receipts add up to. Now, just put those receipts in a second box marked IRS because they may come asking someday. They can do an audit. But otherwise, you don't have to submit anything. You just set those receipts aside. You've now been reimbursed for those, and you can do it the year you incur those or any later year if you hang on to those receipts. So just to be sure to understand the timing here, contributions are while you're actively in the high deductible plan, but distributions can be any time for any eligible expenses, starting with the date you're first eligible and going forward indefinitely. So you see that here in the orange, that continues all the way into and through retirement. So again, you can contribute to the HSA while you're in the plan. You can take money out any year for any expense, starting with that first year in the plan. So now we're going to focus on 3 approaches to using your HSA, with either a focus on today's expenses, a complete focus on saving for tomorrow's health care, or what many of you prefer is some kind of mixed approach in between. And we'll just take those one at a time. So with a focus on today, you'll probably contribute enough to the HSA just to cover your expenses that you have this year. And you'll probably withdraw those funds as soon as you incur the expense. And there's pros and cons. You still receive the wonderful benefit of that triple tax advantage. In short, you're taking the part of your salary needed for healthcare, sending those dollars through the HSA account, and by doing so, you save income taxes on that portion of your salary that you would have used anyway for healthcare. And if that money sits in the HSA for a short time, you may earn a little bit of interest as well. But what you lose is that long-term advantage of saving dollars for future healthcare costs and the potential to invest and earn some growth in the account. Now, As an aside, just note that because the HSA is an actual bank account, you can only take money out if it's actually in the account. So you might incur a big expense early in the year, and you haven't contributed that much yet. You may have to pay the bill on your own with money out of your checking account. Wait until you've contributed enough into the HSA, doing so with no taxes, and then go ahead and make a withdrawal, take that money back out and get reimbursed. So again, your money is just going through the HSA, even if it's just to pay the bill or get reimbursed for the bill right away. But by doing that, you get those triple tax advantages. You just lose the ability to grow for the future and invest those dollars long term. Which takes us to that next scenario. So you may decide you want to leave something in that HSA every year, so you do have a long-term balance for those future medical costs, trying to find that balance between today and tomorrow's costs. This will probably mean saving additional dollars overall. So now you might consider also contributing to a limited purpose FSA, a second account that's an annual account, which you can do only when you're in the HSA. So you contribute to both accounts as much as you can. You always use that limited purpose FSA first when you're allowed. There's some limits on the types of expenses you can get reimbursed from the FSA. So you use that first because it's a use it or lose it each year. It's mainly for vision and dental expenses, as well as medical after you've reached your high deductible for that year. You might even find enough dollars in your cash flow as you review your budget and your spending to pay some healthcare expenses right out of your checking account and not get reimbursed from the HSA this year, so you can save those dollars and let them roll forward. So all of this will hopefully mean you can preserve some of the dollars in your HSA. You pay some bills out of pocket, you pay some through the limited purpose FSA, and then carry some of that HSA over as a balance for future years. So again, two cautions. The limited purpose FSA is one of those accounts that you have to use up each year or you lose the dollars. So make sure you put just enough that you'll use in the year. And this approach now means you probably need to dig into your spending habits a bit and find some cash flow savings to make this work. We're talking about saving a little bit more in these accounts, maybe paying for some expenses out of pocket, so we start to carry a balance over for those future years. But if you can do that, it now means you're building a balance for the long term. And once you have at least $1,000 in that account, you have the chance to develop an asset allocation and invest those dollars just like you do in the UMPIP. And with a strong investment return, that balance can really grow over time. So this example shows the benefit of saving $2,000 in the HSA each year that you don't touch, and you earn either 3%, 5% there in the green line, or a 7% rate of return. All of the balances start to become quite impressive over time, but no surprise, you can really see the benefit of stronger investment success in that overall balance. As you set dollars aside, you leave them in the account, and you invest those dollars at some rate of return. And then the third scenario is a complete focus on using that HSA for future expenses, maybe specifically for your retirement healthcare expenses, now that we know that big number that we have to target to pay for healthcare in retirement. So again, this third approach really just takes that last one to a higher level. Here, you're committed to contributing the maximum allowable in the HSA and leaving all those dollars in the account for the future. So all of your healthcare expenses that you have today will be paid from dollars you put either in a limited purpose FSA, directly out of your take-home pay, or maybe from an emergency fund. And this means an even more aggressive look at your budget. It could even change what you're saving for some other financial goals. So now cash management and budgeting become a bigger part as you put that focus on future healthcare. But if you can do it, it means a larger balance for healthcare expenses in retirement. And because you know this is a long-term plan, you may choose to invest more aggressively because you have the time horizon to do so. You said, I'm not going to touch these dollars. I'm going to max out my contributions. I have 20 years until retirement starts. It's going to last another 20 or 30 years. I have a lot of years where I can write out those investment ups and downs because my time horizon is much longer. So now we come back to that growth chart. The last graph showed the impact of earning a higher rate of return. So adding to this, here we see the value of that higher 7% rate of return and saving additional dollars. In this example, we see the difference of saving either $2,000 a year, $4,000 a year or $6,000 a year, and what that might mean to the final balance. And now you start to see some real gaps in those ending numbers as those graphs go up. Those additional dollars, the higher rate of return, really start to make a difference. So as we think back to that starting conversation, indicating we need $285,000 in resources from somewhere to cover healthcare and retirement, now we can start to see the role that your HSA might play in that plan, whether you save some dollars, as much as you can, or the full amount for the future inside that HSA. What I always like to do in a session like this is to try to make it personal whenever we can, and really that should be your focus as well. What does all of this information mean to you? So let me give you 3 scenarios, and I'm going to ask you to figure out which one really fits you right now. Either number one, you're already investing in your HSA, you're putting money aside for the future, and you want to do even more. Or number 2, you have a healthy HSA account balance. Maybe you're one of those that have just started, you have that $6,400, but you haven't tried investing yet. You're one of the 97%, not one of the 3%. Or number 3, you're more at the beginning. You don't feel like you have a lot of extra money, so it's a budgeting issue first to be able to contribute or save in the HSA. Now, Wespath participants have completely free access to EY financial planners at the EY Navigate Planner line, who can help you with healthcare planning, asset allocation and investing decisions, retirement planning, budgeting that we talked about, or any other financial guidance needs that you may have. So let's now take each of these scenarios and see a little bit on how EY might be able to assist you based on where you put yourself in either number 1, 2, or 3. We'll take them in the same order. If you have a balance already, you're already investing in the HSA, well, EY planners can start by reviewing your current asset allocation, the investment choices you made in that HSA, and help you consider whether the changes are needed to that asset allocation. And then they can work with you on a connected strategy to save and invest for retirement, but now using both your UMPIP, which is that traditional retirement savings vehicle, and the HSA, which is that healthcare specific retirement savings vehicle, because you've chosen to use it that way. And of course, the planners are also ready to help you with all of your other financial goals that you might have, tax questions, estate planning discussions, or any other financial planning needs that you might have. And you see the phone number and the hours there on the slide. For those that put themselves in scenario number 2, so here you have a balance and are ready for that next step of investing. Well, here EY planners can help develop a custom asset allocation for those HSA dollars. So we don't have one to review. We're starting that process now. And they can do the same for your UMPIP balance. You have to make an asset allocation investment decision for that balance as well, because both of these are now for retirement. It may be a very similar asset allocation, but understand every goal that you have has its own asset allocation based on how long you have, your time horizon, your risk tolerance, and other needs. And we can help you with each of those. In both cases, your planner will also provide guidance on implementing that investment strategy in the HSA and the UMPIP, and then stay in touch with follow-up appointments. We'll call you if you ask us to make sure that you maintain the plan, your asset allocation doesn't stray, or consider changes as your goals evolve over time. And then finally, for those more at the beginning stages of this process, your financial planning relationship with EY may begin with a focus more on cash flow and debt reduction. Once you and your planner then identify some ways to reduce spending today, the focus can then shift to a customized healthcare funding strategy using the HSA, that limited purpose FSA, making decisions on how you pay for healthcare today, and also saving and investing for healthcare tomorrow. So hopefully you have a better picture in your mind of how the dollars can flow using these vehicles, especially the HSA, as part of your healthcare strategy, and how these accounts can save taxes now and in the future. And I do hope that you now have an action item to reach out to your EY financial planner at 800-360-2539. We don't have anything to sell, and we don't sell anything, and there's no cost to you. So you can talk through where you are today and what the next right steps are for you and your healthcare funding strategy. Thanks so much for attending.